Everybody here?
Yep.
Everybody good?
I can hear myself.
Yes, sir.
All right, go. Good stuff. All right, there we go. Okay.
Sophisticated Silverbacks, real conversations with real men, and Dave.
Well, Dave's not here yet again, so I guess we're going to have to get that changed.
Dave's 2 for 7, dude. We need to remove him from the intro ASAP.
I get one free one for being a vet. The rest costs money.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're 2 for 7, dude, you shouldn't be in the intro.
Ooh, 2 for 7.
Yeah. Well, I kind of told him that was going to happen. He's busy.
Yeah.
You
No
also
worries.
make time for.
You make time for what's important to you.
Yeah.
Hey, man, if you ain't got time, you got to make time.
All right, so we have a guest today.
Absolutely. Hey, what's going on? My name is Ken Kerr. I can't even say retired. I'm actually a veteran in the United States Air Force Reserve. Was in a special operations unit supporting airlift, and met Lee, and actually I met you, Bill, through just some veteran stuff that I'm doing with a nonprofit organization called MU-85 Military Fraternity Incorporated, where we support our veterans. So it's been great.
It's good, man. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to be able to spend more time with you, but I got my job just around the time that you were coming in here.
Absolutely.
And starting to work out, so we've kind of been ships passing in the night, but it's also good to have another fellow Air Force vet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go Air Force.
So you're saying that I know Ken better than you do?
Probably, yeah.
I'm here 2 times a week. I'm getting my butt kicked 2 times a week, man. Absolutely. You know me better, man. You see me sweat more than he has.
So are we still, okay, I'm just making sure we're not cutting in and out. Doesn't sound like it. I think it's just killing the noise in the background.
Mm-hmm. It's just clipping, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you plugging in your mic?
Yeah, no, my mic should be good.
I mean, your headphones.
Here, weird. There is. Pull out. It did.
You can hear though, right?
Yeah, that's me right there.
All right.
I think that everybody else can hear. That might just be an extra one that I forgot to roll
See,
up.
that's one segment.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
That'll
So
make
we're not taping now though.
We're recording, but I always edit it.
Okay.
Out, whatever. So
Yeah, he edits everything.
Okay,
He
perfect.
does all the editing.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm a technological moron, so none of that.
No, I'm a
none of
technical.
that goes through me.
He does, however, when I set up, get caught up on one question every time I set up, and I'm always in the middle of trying to figure something out. And he's just like, "How many episodes do we have?" I'm like, I'm in the middle of, how many episodes do we have?
Yeah.
All right, Lee, I got it, man.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm trying to figure this. How many? I don't
It's
know,
my
man.
ADHD.
Yeah, that's so true. No, it makes sense.
So, I know you said that you had something you want to talk about with Ken.
Oh, dude, he has the best stories about his kids. Stories about his daughter are priceless.
Yeah, they're good ones, man.
know.
I have a couple of doozies and a couple of winners in there. So, yeah, it's always fun, being a parent, right, and rearing children. But I'll let you. You know more of the stories. I have so many. I have a catalog of
Dude,
them.
listen, I love the whole thing about, she loves being bad.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness! Oh, we're
That's-
talking. All right, yeah. So Ken has about 1 million children, right? They're all over the place. No, I'm kidding. So the youngest is what you're talking about. You're talking about Rosalind. Rosalind is, she's a bull in a china shop, just ready to just rip things down. And she's a strong woman, and it's tough to figure out how you balance that and you also balance your autonomy as being a parent when she is such a bull. And then also just raising strong women, right? That's a thing that that we need to do as dad, parents, and it's just meaningful. So we go through these iterations of just reminding her politely that we're the parents and she's the child, right? And I think we have such a difficult time with that sometimes, because sometimes she wins, which is not conducive for the parent, right? Like it just makes it so difficult. And I don't know if you go through this at all, Lee, with that, but my wife's name is also Lee. So if I say Lee, I'm talking about the prettier version when I talk about the family. So
I don't know if you just called me ugly or I don't know.
No, I didn't call you that, not at all. But
He didn't, but you are.
it's really better. So, no, but my wife Lee, we have, we're trying to figure out a balance. So, for instance, my daughter comes home and I ask her, "Hey, how was your day at school?" And she'll tell me something like, "It was okay." And I say, "Okay, well, what were some of the things that you did well, and then what was some of the thorns? What are some of the thorns that you had at school today?" And she'll tell me something like, "So, I had to go to the back of the line today." And I'm like, "Well, why did you go to the back of the line today?" And she goes, "Because I kicked someone." And I think to myself, "Okay, well, why did you kick somebody?" And she says, "Because they were in my space." And I say, "Wait, did you ask them to move?" "Yeah, but they didn't move quick enough for me, so I just physically removed them." And I was like, "Okay, well, okay, interesting, right? Very interesting, but there's things that you need to do, right? You should ask them questions first. You should say, 'Hey, can you please give me some space? You're actually in my personal space, and I would love to be able to stretch my feet out or do certain things or be able to move my body, but you're there. Can you give me some space?'" And she's just such a bull where, she is more reactionary than, just taking the opportunity to think about what she needs first and then making sure that she can get it or seeking help from somebody else, right? And I think for kids nowadays, I think that might be even a tough thing, because I've done a lot of work with students, and I've done a lot of work with folks that are in the tech field. And a lot of those kids, they're like very recluse, right? They don't want to talk to anybody. They keep to themselves. So, I mean, I'm kind of conflicted within myself, because I'm thinking to myself, if I knock her down or say, "Hey, don't do that," what is that going to do to her growing up as a person? Like, does that suppress any emotions in her? Does that suppress her tenacity to want to be that go-getter? And so I'm kind of like fighting this duality of what works.
Tommy Lasorda. I think everybody at this table knows who Tommy Lasorda was.
Absolutely.
You used to say that coaching was like holding a dove. Squeeze it too tight, and you choke it out.
Yeah.
And hold it too loosely, and it flies away.
Never
So,
get back.
and I think that applies to parenting. I mean, it's a fine line.
Absolutely.
Finding out what makes your child tick and what gets inside her head and works and doesn't work. And that's trial and error growing up, having them grow up. Having boys and having girls it's a whole different ball game.
Absolutely.
Girls is a whole different ball game than having boys.
Yes.
Boys, I'd just be able to stare at him and he'd be like, her, she's not afraid of anything.
Absolutely.
She knows what she can get away with and what she can't. And, they play mommy and daddy against each other and all that.
Oh, those are the fun times.
Yeah, kids are smart.
Yeah. Those are definitely the fun times. I mean, you're right. You're definitely correct when it comes to managing boys. And I have an older daughter, too, that's 22 years old. And she's more emotionally in tune with how I feel. So if I have an issue and I look at her and I said, "Hey, man, I'm so disappointed," she just falls apart. It's like the end of the world. Everything comes crashing down. My boys, if I'm disappointed, they're like, "Yeah, well, you know what? Go find somebody to talk to." It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. But that's just how guys are. And it's just weird to see, the youngest, who's 5, take on a lot of those similar qualities, but she's very all about being a young lady. She loves it, loves the dresses, loves dressing up, loves the makeup, loves the long gloves, all of the stuff, loves the Frozens and, every Disney princess out there, she loves it. But if you mess with her, she's going to give you a rash of stuff, and she's going to tell you where you need to be and how you need to get there, what doors to use, right? And, everything shy of just giving you the 2 fingers up, man, So it's like, it's just interesting, man. It's very, very tough.
I have a little bit of the opposite problem. Like, my kid's like a bit of a wallflower. Like, I want her. Like, I'm like, make mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, make them now. Like, have fun. Like, I mean, but going back to the socializing, I don't think it's just the tech kids. I think it's this generation and a half of kids that are just probably on. I went back to college as an adult, like just a couple of years ago, and I would sit next to a kid who's having problems with his homework or whatever it is, and I'm like, hey, man, you want me to help? And they're just like looking at me like, what is this? What are you doing right now? And I'm just talking to them. But if I text them right next to them, we'd have a full-out conversation.
That's true.
So I'd start with the text, and then I would eventually look and go, all right, man, I'm right next to you. We can do this in real life. Like, now I'm not like a weird old guy. Let me help you with your homework, but I can't do it like this, But they're so uncomfortable. And I noticed a little bit of that with my daughter, especially after 2020. I think that stunted a lot of the social growth.
Well, I think our generations were the last generations that really played outside. We played ball outside. We played tag outside. We played freedom outside. We hopped fences. We were outside until our parents called us in and, yelled from the front doorstep, yelled your name loud enough to hear 5 blocks away for you to come home. And in that, when you were on the basketball court, the baseball field, the hockey rink, whatever, you wherever you played in the street, you learned how to negotiate. You're out. No, I was safe. No, you were out. And you had to negotiate that.
Absolutely.
And you did that face to face.
Oh, you might even have taken a licking too.
and now, to Bill's point, they're just texting each other.
And there was corrective measures, right? So if I got out of line as another guy, somebody might hit me, right? But like at that age, it was boom. All right, you know what? I was a little out of line there. But you also see that you need a little bit of that, but with that being missed, when that incident happens later on, it's so much more aggressive now. Because I remember getting hit, or if I got knocked down, that was it. And then now you watch kids fight, they rarely do fight, but when they do, it's like, it seems to be knockout, drag out, brutal. And I think that's all with the collapse of like just socializing, younger, less, you know what I mean? Like there's less ramifications if we're fighting when we're 5. Of course we'll talk, your parents will talk to you, the teachers will talk to you, you can do less damage. It's more of an emotional thing than a physical thing.
My favorite Sam story, when he was in preschool, and I still have the note at home in my basement gym where Bill and I work out on weekends. And I go to pick him up, and he's 5 years old, 4 or 5, and he's already taken karate classes. So I go to pick him up, and it's summertime, and there's a bite mark on his shoulder. I said, whoa. I said, what happened to you? He goes, Joey bit me, and then he punched me. I said, whoa, buddy, you take karate. Why didn't you hit him back? He goes, because Sister Mariel put me in timeout. I said, whoa. I said, full stop. I said, the next time Joey hits you, I said, you hit him back, and don't stop hitting him until Sister Mary has to pull you off him. I said, I'll take you to Rita's and buy you a water ice. So literally the next day, I go to pick him up, and he's standing in the corner. And there's a note in the cubby. And that's a note we have. It says, he got into it with another child, and bing, right away, I know who it was, on the playground, put him in a chokehold, and refused to let go after several commands. They had to pull him off him.
Follow those directions.
So I took him to Rita's. I bought him water ice, right? The next day, he comes bouncing out of the daycare. He's all happy. He comes bouncing. I said, did you have a good day? He said, I had a great day. I said, what was great about it? He says, Joey doesn't hit me anymore. He gives me hugs. I said, I'll bet he does.
Absolutely. Joey learned his lesson. See, that's what he executed on the assignment really well. And Joey got scared. And there's nothing wrong with that. So from my perspective, the way that we grew up, right, is we grew up years before, like I was coming into the digital age when I was, going into high school, right? And you guys probably didn't have that until you were in your 20s, right?
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I thought you guys
I was
were
in middle school. We're probably closer.
I thought you guys were around. I'm the elder here.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Well, so the thing is, though, with that being said, is the idea that if we got in an argument or we got in a fight, word of mouth took our situation to the masses, right? Like our friends didn't know about that until 3 or 4 days later, all right, or the next day at school.
Yep.
Today it's different. Everybody's got cell phones. Everybody can tweet and go to Instagram. I call it the Insta Facebook,
Yep.
mentality where something happens, it happens real time, and then people see it almost near real time, and that's damaging for a lot of the youth because they don't really know how to navigate that nowadays. Because for us that wasn't a thing. We got in a fist fight with somebody and it was it was done. It didn't circle the internet 500 times.
Well, and what they really don't grasp is that when they post it, it's there forever.
Ever.
It's there forever, and it's forever. What you're tagged with, what you are, forever in that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they don't get that. They can't grasp that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. The digital history is another thing. Everything is being cataloged and and farmed out to other locations so it can be accessed by other folks more quickly. So even if you do delete a tweet or delete something that you put on social media somewhere, it could always come back. Because it's all cached somewhere and stored somewhere remotely. It's crazy times.
You're also not allowed to evolve. So
Yeah.
like that stuff gets put into the internet, put out there on social media, and then 20 years from now, somebody brings something up and they're like, well, you said this. Yeah, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you're, a 35-year-old, yeah, you're 15, you're a completely different person, completely different maturity level. You may have said the most ignorant thing due to lack of knowledge, but now it's there forever. I mean, who is it, Kevin Hart?
Yeah, Kevin Hart.
Have a few award ceremonies because of something he said 5-10 years prior. And it's just like, one, he's a comedian. It's taken out of context. Two, people evolve.
That's very true.
Comedy evolves, like their style evolves. And with that just being out there and stuck there, it's a detriment to most of the kids because they don't realize, because younger, you don't realize it's going to be there forever.
Sure.
And then where we messed up, like there's things I'm glad they never caught on camera. Yeah.
That's so true. That is so true.
And it's just like
Egg in the house.
Yeah.
Toilet paper house.
I remember being up when was it Macy's? Macy's was on Cotman, and my cousin, we were riding bikes, and he's on the Eagle with his pants down on his ankles, pumping the face when cops pull up.
Wow.
And flash the light on him, and the cop's like laughing his ass off. He's like, will you get down, dummy? Get out of here. Right? Nowadays, that's on the internet. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
You
yeah.
see his ass. A cop has to do something now because
That's true.
He knows he's being filmed, so he can't just go, get out of here, you idiots. Because we weren't doing anything.
Yeah.
We just thought it was hilarious. We were taking a break so I could make a phone call at a payphone, which no longer exists.
That's true.
I have a close friend of mine who was, grew up in Mayfair, the Mayfair section of Philadelphia, and he was at one of the overpasses on the boulevard, dropping eggs on the cars as they went by. So the cop that caught him brought him back to his parents' house by his ear.
Sure.
Like, now his dad was like vintage 1950s with a pocket protector and like old school, so you knew he got his ass handed to him. He got his ass handed to him when he got back in that house. That kid's a cop now.
So but what do you think about that kind of stuff? Do you think, because there's always that constant argument that, the way that children were reared a long time ago was the gold standard compared to like the soft, squishy parenting of today. Like,
I don't like to use. I mean, using the term the term got abused, but I look at everybody in a room like snowflakes. Everybody's different. I couldn't discipline my daughter like I discipline my son. Like sometimes my son will sit there and go like, watch my daughter get away with something that he could never get away with, and he's there like, Dad.
yeah.
Because I can't talk to her and she doesn't respond the same way that he did. So I look at everybody different, but to your question, I think today that we're way softer or today's parents are way softer, have way gone the other way. They're more interested in being their child's friend than they are being the parent. I remember telling my son, he'd say, "Oh, Jimmy's parents let him do this," and I'm like, "Well, uh, you're not Jimmy's parents' son. Like you're my son, so you're gonna do it my way."
Exactly.
So that's the way I looked at raising my kid. But I think this generation is soft. They're soft. The parents are soft.
We're still animals and a product of evolution, regardless of where you believe we started. You know what I mean? I'm Catholic, but I also realize that we have evolved, and it's through adversity.
Sure.
And we always want it to be easier for our kids, but at the same time, yeah, they have to have challenges. They have to have adversity. They have to have difficulties. People get mad, but bullies do serve a purpose. You know what I mean? That's, and they make or break you. You either determine how to stand up for yourself, whether it's being funny, fighting back, whatever it is, or you fold. And we care about the people that fold a lot, which I guess is an honorable thing. But at the same time, you when you remove those adversarial factors out of their life, you don't evolve from comfort. You know what I mean? You evolve and you learn and you gain better experience from situations that challenge you.
Well, it was Napoleon Hill that said, "There is no growth without struggle."
Which is true. Because I know from my own personal, experiences in life that, there was one time where, I was even bullied. And I remember my dad asked me as a kid, he said, "Hey, why aren't you going to the teen center anymore?" And I was like, "Hey, man, because, this guy at the top of the street, he doesn't really like me. And, if I walk by his house, he's going to try to pick on me." My dad was like, "Hey, listen, you know what? You're going to walk to the teen center today. That's where you're going." And I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, man, I'm going to die. Let me go another way." So I was going all of these other ways. And my dad was like, "Hey," when I got home, he was like, "Hey, I followed you. And you didn't go the way that you're supposed to go. So we're going to do this tomorrow." And it was crazy. But one day I ended up running into him, and the kid stopped me and he punched me in the stomach. And I remember thinking to myself, all right, man, well, I'm not dead. I'm out of breath. I'm not dead. I'm cool. I can keep moving. And that's what I did. I moved on. But then I remember I ended up getting bigger than this kid. I got much bigger. I grew up. And I remember that same kid that punched me in the stomach, he wasn't messing with me anymore. If he saw me, he was like, "Hey, man," he was very calm and very different. And as you mentioned, right, it's the whole evolution of things. Because I remember I ended up saying to myself, well, I don't ever want to feel like that anymore. I don't ever want to feel like I need to go, be outside of myself, be that person. Like if you take that, for me, it was like, hey, if I look outside my own personal stained glass window and I look, like, am I going to be happy with that guy that I see? Right? What is that going to do for me as a person? Me knowing that I'm skating adversity, like not even skating adversity, but skating the challenges that might await at the top of the road because I'm scared to walk past this person's house, And then that taught me a lot of things about, one, how to treat people, how I wanted to be treated, and also that I'm not going to put up with bullying and bully shit, right? Like I'm not going to be that person that's going to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to be that person that's going to get bullied for the rest of my life. No, not at all. So I started throwing punches back, and then he saw that and he was like, well, this guy got bigger than me over a summer. I'm going to leave him alone, right? And in the story, the moral of the story is not to be an advocate for violence, right? That's not what it's saying, but there's healthy conflicts that children need to have in life to ensure that they can be better humans moving forward, right? Like, so I'm a big proponent of, if my kid shows up, right, and they lose, they don't need a participation award. And I don't know how people feel about that. I hate it, right? Because what does that teach the children? It teaches them, hey, man, I maybe show up. I don't have to put the work in, but I can get the same award as everybody else. And that, to me, is a little crazy. I don't know how you feel about it. I'd love to hear it.
Not a fan.
Yeah.
Not a fan at all. Yeah, you said it. You got to put in the work. Somebody has to finish first. Somebody has to finish last. and somebody has to finish second or third. So at some point during when my son was little, we played Little League, and his team finished second, and everybody got trophies. He went up and gave it back. He said to the guy running the league, he says, "I don't want this. You know, we didn't win. I don't want it." That was one of the proudest moments as a parent.
Absolutely.
That he gave that back. He didn't even want the free hot dog on the way out. He was like, "We lost. I want to go home. Like we're done here. We're done here."
I mean, I constantly tell my daughter there's moments that make or break you.
Yes.
Right? That determine how you're going to deal with things later on in life that mimic that are mirrored to that. They're all learning experiences. And losing's one of those, right? You can either lose and fall up, you know what I mean, and give up. Like Ronda Rousey was a champion and then lost, and then you never saw her again.
Yeah.
Like, she came back maybe once. Or you can do some introspection, see where things went wrong, and train to get better at it or learn how to adapt to it.
You have to lose to learn how to win.
That's facts.
So when I started competing in the sport of powerlifting in 1992, my very first Worlds, I finished 4th.
I was 12.
Out of 16 countries.
I was 12 too.
All right, so I finished 4th. And then in 95, I finished 3rd. So at that point, I wanted to know what I needed to do to finish 1st. So I looked at what the guys at the top were lifting, and instead of looking at placing, I knew I had to lift. I looked at numbers. I need to outlift them to have a shot to get to where I was going. And then it made me delve further into reading books on physics and reading books on training, and then putting in that work and getting better. And then when I realized that it was about numbers and not placing in that sport, that's when I started finishing 1st, because I wanted to do better than I did last time.
Absolutely.
Like you'll see in my sport, at least, you'll see the same people show up to competitions lifting the same weights that they did last time and getting the same placings. And they're content with that because maybe there's nobody in their division and they finish 1st. So if there's only 1 or 2 people in my division, I know I'm going to finish 1st. Who cares what I lift? Like I don't really have. There's no drive. There's no drive there. Like my drive there is to be like Hall of Fame material. Like I don't want to be 2nd or 3rd. I want to put up a number that's so big that it's incredulous. Like I look at, and again, everything became numbers for me. Less than 1% of the male population of the world bench presses twice their body weight. Less than 0.5% of females bench press their own body weight. Wow. So out of my competitive career for over 20 years, I've benched no less than twice my body weight. I'm coming up on a 3 times body weight bench, which is...
That's crazy.
I mean, that separates me. So when we go to compete, when I'm on the platform, I'm with the heavyweights. Bill's following me.
Yeah,
Bill's following my lift because they don't go by weight classes. They go by the weight that's on the bar. So Bill is after I lift.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm going to, I'll be cheering for you both. You know what I'm saying? My shoulder surgery over here is slowly getting back to, to 100%.
You're strong. You're looking good.
Yeah. I lost a bunch of weight, testament to, this guy over here, Lee, which is a good deal. Yeah, I mean, that's also another thing, right? Like making sure you're physically fit, right? And I think physical fitness plays a lot into emotional fitness as well, all right? And I think that's a missing thing that a lot of people don't really understand. And I think from my own perspective, I love coming here, right? It's a little bit of a drive for me, but it's definitely worth it. My wife is like, why do you keep going? It's so far, and you spend more time in the car than you do at the... And I have to tell her, it's not about that at all. It's about the one, feeling like you're a part of a family. And then the other thing also is, I come here with my son, and we get to work out together. That's a lot of time that we get to bond, we get to hang out with you. That fun father-son time is very important.
And it's fleeting.
It is. It is.
Time is fleeting.
It is. And it's one of those things like, my son Ryan he's getting ready to go into the Air Force, and, he's selected a bunch of jobs. He's waiting for a date to go to basic. So any of those opportunities where even the car ride home, I get an opportunity to talk to him and just, shoot the shit with him and just have a really good time. And it's those moments, right, that you wish you
Yes.
can get back. Right?
Those were the best. Sam's senior year before he went to Navy, we were finishing 12 years of travel hockey. And it was just the two of us driving to and from the games, and you just nailed it. That time in the car or time in the truck, going back and forth. I felt that time slipping away, and that was the best of times, and it was the most difficult time because I just felt that time just getting away from me. It was the end of the line, and I knew it was never going to be the same once he went away.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And it's crazy because you have that boomerang syndrome. And I don't know if you have this, Bill, but like I have older children, so it's funny because I've seen them more than once leave the nest, and I'm so bummed. And then things in their life just doesn't work out, and then they end up coming back, and I'm super happy. So it's like it's weird. You like really want the best for them, and you try to set them up for as much success as possible, but they're gonna do their own thing too. They're gonna navigate life the way that they want to.
And that's your success as a parent. They're well equipped. They're well equipped for life.
Yeah.
You equipped it. You have kids. I admire you immensely as a parent because you have the full range of kids. And, you have older kids, you have younger kids, and your kids are successful.
Yeah.
And it says a lot about the job that you've done as parents, you and Lee, because
Thank you.
as parents, because your kids are well equipped for life. They're well equipped to handle life, and that says a lot about you.
Thank you very much. I think one of the biggest things that I've always tried to instill in them was to take care of each other, brothers and sisters, right? And without me, there's still a family, right? They still have to move that mission forward. And at one point, many moons ago, I was a single parent taking care of 3 children and in the military at the same time, and that was tough. So I remember everything that had to deal with how I raised them, right? How I reared them as children was all about preparedness, right? How do you do this? This is how you make this. This is how you do this. This is how you iron clothes. This is how you wash your clothes. Because at the time, they were staying with my parents as well. Like when I would deploy or go somewhere, they were with my parents. And my parents took on the lion's share of making sure that they were good, right? And I wanted to make sure that they were active participants. And if my mom was like, hey, I need you to go sweep the floor or make yourself a sandwich, that they could actually do that, and they were prepared and ready to do that. And I think a lot of that has transcended them as children and kind of carried them through into their adult life, where now they're more sufficient. And I remember one day that I felt, I think I turned like 32 years old, and I remember asking my children, I said, hey, is there anything you need from me? Like, can I help you with something? And they're like, no, I got it. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh man, like I'm kind of bummed because they always needed me, and now they don't need me anymore. And that was a scary moment for myself because my oldest at the time was 12 when that happened. So I had like 12, 10, and it was like 12, 10, and 8, right, at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, I'm going to be alone forever. Like, I'm going to be like one of those, old lonely guys forever. And it just didn't work out that way, thank God. Ended up meeting my wife. But yeah, moving on and transitioning and helping your kids grow on to be something bigger and better than who you are is huge.
Yeah, I know as a parent and as a coach, I mean, here at the rink, being around so many different people and so many different adults, when I would tell them that, I had my kids mowing the lawn. I mean, my daughter learned the same age. I treated her exactly the same as I treated my son in that regard. She knows how to mow the lawn.
Yeah.
She knows how to do her own laundry. She can cook herself a meal. She's self-sufficient. She doesn't need a man. She can do everything for herself. And that was very, very important to me as a parent, that she should need for nothing. She can do it herself.
That's outstanding.
We taught him how to mow the lawn at 12 years old. He was doing his own laundry, folding it, putting it away. All those things to make an individual self-sufficient. That's very, very important to me as a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's kind of what I was going for with my daughter, because I had a friend tell me a long time ago, and my daughter's the only one. We weren't even supposed to be able to have kids, my wife or myself, but we just kind of lucked out. That
Well, good for you. That's outstanding.
Yeah, that when
Congrats.
Yeah, I mean, I did the easy stuff. I did the fun stuff. My wife did the hard part.
You know you have to say that.
But yeah, I mean, for the first, when I got out of the Air Force, they messed up all my retirement paperwork. It's 2008. All the jobs I had lined up fell through. Welfare wouldn't give me anything initially because I needed a letter from the VA with my award on it. The VA gave me a letter that said it's going to take 8 to 12 months to get your stuff done. So I went right into work, taking one job after another, and then I ended up working for the DOD, 12-hour shifts, hour and a half there, hour and a half back. I told that a couple times. So there's a large part of her life that I wasn't there for. And then at one point, they started putting me in like deployment services, and then that just started to mess with me. Just seeing the kids come back the way they were, some of them, and just getting hosed by the DOD. So I left, went back to school, and my daughter was nervous that I was coming. She was scared. She was her mom the whole time. And she's very shy and things like that. And I said, and she said it. She's always been the type to say what she feels and says, I'm very, I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen. So I had to go for a walk because it broke my heart to hear that because I'm her dad. And then I came back and I sat with her and I said, look, your dad's a cool guy. I know you don't know it. You know what I mean? We'll be okay. You know what I mean? It'll be just you and I. Just give me a chance. And I told the story how she got into art plenty of times, and that's basically like she would get stressed out. I said, go somewhere in your head. She had this beautiful story in her head and start drawing it out. How do I do this for a living, Dad? I said, anything's repetition. I'm not an artist, but keep doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But my family did try to raise a princess, and my whole idea was, you're a shield maiden. And she would go, Dad, what the hell is that? Because I have Viking blood in me.
Yeah.
So that's my last name's Bear. It's in the sagas. So I said to her, shield maiden's a lot like a princess, but she can beat somebody's ass. And she can take care of herself, and they're highly respected. She can also be the chief of the tribe. And I was like, I need you to be that.
Yeah, she carried a weapon.
Seriously. She has her own Glock. So.
All right, good. Translates well to today.
Yeah, so she, first she started with martial arts. Then I started coming here. That worked. That's actually how Operation Counterstrike started.
Excellent.
I was on 26 different meds over 15 years. Every one of them after 3 or 4 months would make me suicidal, paranoid, manic. My brain would just race. I would get sick, puke, nosebleeds, all kinds of stuff that just kept pumping me full of drugs. It's your PTSD, it's your PTSD. It was, but the drugs were making it worse. So I came in here, started lifting, got into that environment where it was real supportive, started lifting heavier things, started feeling better about myself. And then my daughter says, I want to lift. I always let her ask 3 times before she gets in it because I need to know that she's interested. You know what I mean? Dad, I want to lift. And I said, okay. Twice. I said, if we get you in, you're in. I said, you got to put some effort into it. You got to put some time into it. And I said, that means giving up time for other things. You're like, Dad, I want to lift. So I came in, I asked. He kind of started showing her how to, bench press. And then she just kind of like got the bug and was in here. Then it was, you need to get into a competition. Not weightlifting, anything. Mathlete, chess, whatever, art, whatever. You need to start working towards something, compete, pass, fail, do well, win, lose. You need to experience all that, but the actual effort of working towards something and towards a goal. And we were sitting, getting ready for my first mock meet. 2 weeks before, I think I can't remember who she was with, but one of the boys that was from Dave's as well, he was just starting out, and she out deadlift him. And then she came over and said, Dad, I want to do this. And then Lee looks at me like, what? Because she's like a wallflower. And he's like, if you want to do this means more time. And she put in more time. And in 2 weeks.
Yeah, if you want to do it, we're going to do it.
Oh, absolutely. And let's get it done.
We don't do anything by half here.
Oh,
you know that.
No half measures, man.
And that first mock meet, pound for pound, wouldn't you say?
She crushed it.
She crushed like women that were my size. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, she ate their lunch.
Yeah, see, that's what's up, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she loved it. And then she went into wrestling. And then this is another proud moment. She went through all wrestling, and it was a bad program. They weren't teaching her anything. And about 2 months in, she's like, Dad, I'm done. They're not teaching me anything. I'm losing the same way. She's like, I understand I'm going to lose, but the same way, not knowing what I'm doing, I'm done. And then when she came back in here, Lee said, welcome home, and you could just see that she was just happy again.
Yeah.
Like, this is her place, too. So I'm constantly trying to challenge her and push her and get her used to, look, this is good now, and Grandma and Grandpa might take care of you and stuff like that, but at some point, you're going to hit a worst case scenario, and you need challenges and things to work against now to build up that resilience and resistance towards anything bad coming, so that you can surpass it and know that you can live through it. And that's kind of like what I've been doing with a girl. Because going back to what one of my friends said, is it always made me nervous. She said, I have a boy. I got to worry about one penis. You got a girl. You got to worry about every penis.
Every other one. There's millions of them. And some of them are not good.
and it does. Like I don't have a boy, but I think my attitude would be different towards a boy, because I am constantly in high alert. And with the PTSD or whatever it is, worst case scenario, my entire life's a risk assessment, but it's always a risk assessment for her with anything she does.
Yeah, that's a tough thing, and you touched on a whole bunch of things that, one thing is, I also have PTSD, right, and that's something that I struggle with as well, and I know that, coming here is one of those things that helps me kind of level set and reassess and take a lot of the load off, and pushing up heavy weight, and it can reconditions your mind. And takes your mind off a lot of the stresses of everything that might be moving around you really, really quickly. I know, like my wife, she's amazing. She knows we walk into a space, she's like, hey, I'm gonna sit here because I know you need to sit and you need to be looking at the door. You need to be watching people coming in and watching people going out. And, my wife might be able to remember every name of one of her students. I can remember anybody that has walked into a room, what they're wearing, how tall they are, what they look like. I can provide a whole salute report, depending on what that person looks like and what they were doing, right? And so it's different, right, for us to be on such high alert and to be so vigilant, right? And then to come to a place like this where you don't feel like you need to be carrying or like on high alert all the time. Because me, I'm a carrier. I carry, like, wherever I go is like a thing, for me. And you don't have to feel like you need to do that. You don't have to be on high alert. You may not push up, 10 reps this time, and that's okay. Like, you're going to be perfectly fine, right? You hit the gym the next time, and maybe you get it then. Or, there's been plenty of times where I'm pushing, and Lee's like, nope, you don't got it. Let me, and he'll grab
let's
it.
rack it.
Let's rack it, right? Let's rack it, and we'll give it a go. And I think that's what's important, right? I think the thing that the VA doesn't tell you is that you don't really need to be on 7,000 types of meds. I have med containers that could fill this whole entire table. And I'm sure you have the same exact thing, Bill. And it's just crazy the amount of medication that they prescribe to folks to try to get them to be even keel. But, a lot of that's not necessary, because you can do things like this.
That goes to the mind-body connect, that mind and body connection.
Yeah, it's a strong thing. Definitely a strong thing. You take care of your body, your mind will follow.
I mean, ultimately, Operation Counterstrike was born because Bill went to 3 other gyms before you got 3 or 4 before he got to me. And we have a common friend that reached out to me and, explained to me a little bit of Bill's story and said, would you do it? And I was the lead exercise physiologist at a hospital's cardiac rehab for 17 years, and his health issues didn't scare me. So I said, yeah, sure, send him. I didn't think he would stick. Like, he had to sit down when he got in the door. He had to sit down from walking from the parking lot to the door.
Wow.
So, but he pushed through. And I looked at that and I thought, having a son that is in the Naval Academy, I thought there had to be a way to help veterans and make it easy for them. So with the help of another client that I have, we created a nonprofit foundation. So we get sponsors, or donors, and they cover the cost of the training for the vets. We just need the vets to come and train.
Absolutely.
So we're sitting at about 12 appointments a week right now among veterans. I do about 52 to 53 appointments a week. About 12 of them are veterans right now. So.
And that's outstanding work, man.
And I almost giggle. I almost laugh when people talk to me about, oh, it's a little far. a little far. You're a little far away. I'm in Bucks County. And I'm like,
Tell them to come talk to me.
yeah, talk to you. I got two boys who come here in the afternoons from South Philly.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you know, talk to you, talk to them. Like, you make time for what's important to you.
Absolutely. My ride home is like, what, an hour and 10 minutes?
Yeah,
Sometimes, you know?
I mean,
Depending on the weather, it might be even longer.
Yeah,
So.
and you know, it's growing. It's grown since you've been here.
Yeah.
And it's going to grow even more.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, and it's a great family. It's a great cohort of people that come through here, and we have a lot of really great, strong relationships that we build in the morning with a lot of the characters that I call them, you know. And the best part about it is it's seeing that somebody's having a challenging moment and being able to give them a hug. You know, like that.
Like
you
I
know.
saw that on Thursday. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was
You
know,
know.
it was amazing to watch. That you saw that, you knew it, you did it, and like, yeah, I was just, you know, wow.
Yeah, it's,
wow.
you just got to take care of people. You know, wherever you got to meet people where they are sometime, and sometimes that may put you in an uncomfortable situation.
Yep.
But you got to do it. Just like, you know, you taking on, taking on veterans, right? That might have put you in an uncomfortable. You know, how do we get started? Like, what do we do? How do we get the funding? What does this mean? You know, booking them, because, you know, veterans are all over the place, right?
Yep.
You might book them and they may not show up.
Yep.
Because some of the veterans are a little interested.
There's also a lot of bullshit out there for veterans too.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of gyms that you would go to. Oh, it's free, but no. You can come in and use this, and this, and that's free. But the rest of this is, you know, like, so trying to get people in here, and I felt horrible at first. Because I was the one that asked Lee. I said, look, this has really helped me. Would you be interested in doing something? And you're right, the environment's great. Like, I would come in, and at first when I'm coming in, they're like, I could tell they're just like, look at this fat dude. I was almost 500 pounds. And then he'll never stick. And then as I'm sticking, I could see that people were starting to cheer me on.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, they see that I'm putting forth the effort. So now they're like, all right, well, he's worth talking to. And, like, I mean, everybody. Like, my parents needed the roof done one time. Something happened. Somebody stepped up and, you know what I mean, got their company out there. Like, great price, like, looking for work for me when I needed work. It was just a real supportive environment that I kind of needed, and I also needed to lift the heavy shit, because there'd be days that I come in here and I'm happy. What's up?
I mean, the first year, I paid out of my pocket to keep it open.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have any appointments at all the very first year, and you know, I said to Bill, we'll give it a second year. I mean, I'm keeping it open out of my pocket. You know, with the way nonprofit bank accounts and all that work. And the other thing was, you know, my son's going to be a veteran.
Yeah.
And I always looked at my clients and my patients, I call them patients when I work at the hospital, that I would want somebody, I would treat them like I'd want my parent to be treated, or like I'd want my kids to be treated. Because someday I'm not going to be here, and I would hope that somebody would take that time with my kids or my parents or grandparents or whatever it may be. And it's about the people.
Absolutely. And it's something as simple as meeting you every day and with a handshake. How you doing? Like, right? It's something as simple as that every single morning that can change a person's perspective, right? And make them feel a little bit different about themselves and make them stand up a little bit taller. And I remember, you know, like, coming in, my son is very awesome kid, very, very awesome kid. He is a very quiet kid, loves to be by himself, like, you know, but I got to see him open up a little bit more and be able to have full conversations and to talk to folks. And
I'm going to miss him, bro.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to miss him too.
I'm going to miss talking to him about sports,
my
bro.
gosh.
I'm going to miss him. I'm so proud of him.
I am definitely going to miss him too, because he's a great kid, and I know he's just trying to figure out, like, hey, how do I actually make it in this crazy world? And then also leverage some of the things that I really like to do. And I think there's, you know, I've been talking to him about the military for such a really long time. But then as a parent, right, it's one of those things where you can bring the challenge to them, and you can say, hey, here's the challenge, right? But you have to allow them the opportunity to kick the door open for themselves. And I think that's the thing, right? That's the defining moment where it starts to become, you know, extrinsically motivated, right? I'm telling him, hey, this is the opportunity. Maybe you should do it. And then him intrinsically saying, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. And then you see him actually doing it, and then him calling a recruiter and staying on top of it, and then and then finding a way to go to the recruiting station and talk to the recruiter, and then having them say, hey, Dad, this is when I'm going to enlist. Those are the opportunities and the moments that, wow, you stand back and you're like, wow, holy crap. Like, wow, he's made a significant amount of progress to get himself where he needed to be. And, my dad said it best when I was a kid. He said, hey, listen, I want a couple of things. He said, I want a couple of things for you. I want you to be happier than I was, and I want you to make more money, because I know that's a foundational block of making sure that you can continually stay happy, is making sure that you and your family are secure. And that's a strive every single day to be able to meet that challenge. But it's a good challenge to know that you can wake up, and it's nice to have a parent to tell you, hey man, here's a challenge for you, right? And here's a goal, and you should seek this goal out. And it may seem like that needle gets moved and that hurdle gets higher and higher every now and again. But man, when you step over that thing and you keep moving forward and you look back and you're like, holy crap, man, like these are all the things that I've done. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I think it's one of those things, and I'm sure if you ask my parents, they'd be proud of my progress. They'd be proud of my relationship with my children. They'd be proud of all the things that I've done. But it's nice for me as a parent to look at my children and to say, hey man, I'm proud of you. That's, and give them a hug. That's important.
Do you have siblings?
I do. And this is the thing for me, and this is why I love so hard on my children, is because my sisters love me, but as a child, I had a lot of, I want to say, being a boy in between two girls is different. Like my G.I. Joes, they weren't the same height as the Barbies. My sisters were always like, listen, they can't get married because the G.I. Joes are midgets and the Barbie dolls they're like Amazon princesses. It was crazy. So I couldn't really I couldn't relate to them, on that level. But when we got older, I was a cheerleader, so I got to cheerlead, and then we found like more of a commonality, like a common interest in, with me throwing young ladies in the air, and it just became that thing where we bonded on that. So I made sure that my daughter, in between two boys, didn't ever feel that way. So like when my sons had an opportunity to play, right, they were playing with the same exact toys, I said, hey, you know what, My Little Pony can play too, and this is how this is how she can play with you guys, and this is the things that the benefit of My Little Pony. Hey, you could put a G.I. Joe on a My Little Pony, and she, he fits up there pretty good, and I think it's just making sure
awesome.
that as a
so
parent,
awesome.
as a parent, you just make sure that you're extremely inclusive of the gender dynamics that you have between your children, and you can make it work. Mm-hmm. One big thing was gun safety for the kids. Like that was one of the things that I taught my older children, and it was something that we could all do as a family, and that resonated with every single one of us, right? And we did a ton of camping. We camped everywhere, and it's interesting for folks that look like me, like to be going out there in the wildlife and camping. But I had a really good friend, my best friend Chris, that I remember he loves to camp, and that's his thing. And we would go and we would camp, and it was more glamping than camping because you can't do anything else when you got 3 kids and they want things to do, especially when it's raining. But we made it work, and I think finding the things where you can bring your family together, those are critical. Those are critical junctions that you have in life, and they're crucial, and you have to have them. And if you don't have them, for anybody that is listening, it's never too late to forge those bonds and those relationships. And even if they are broken, you could always mend them, right? And I think the biggest thing is being able to admit your fault and say you're sorry. And that's one thing that I always try to do with my children all the time. Like if I'm wrong, I always try to tell them, hey, I'm wrong. And I always make them, not make them believe, but I always tell them, I'm no different than how you were. I had a child at 20 years old, and I am so happy that my children, right, the older children at 24, 22, and 20 have not had any children. And I think to myself, if that's a goal that I am proud of, because I want them to be ready. I want them to have a foundation and a structure for themselves where they don't have to feel like they have to rob from Peter to pay Paul to be able to support their family. And that's one thing that I had to do. I spent most of my I want to say my young adulthood figuring out how I can make a family work when I was missing a major component, which was the mom, right? And that for me was sad, but it was also rewarding because not a lot of people had the same opportunity that I had, right? You don't hear of many dads or many single dads out there that have 3 children in their care, and that's something that I will forever be proud of.
Much respect.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. But it was difficult, very, very difficult, making $32,000 a year, right, and taking care of all 4 of us, and figuring out what medical bills we need to pay and who's going to eat and how we do all of that. It was always an interesting moment, and I think one that taught me a lot about how to take care of people, how to take care of myself, and then also how to persevere and keep moving that needle forward, and also never listening to a person tell you this is where you're going to make it. You can only make it up to here. You can't move the needle any further. And then always just breaking that glass wall and moving forward and keeping things moving, and learning in bigger and better things. Always moving yourself forward, and then just always being a better version of the person you were the day before. Right? I think that's all we could ever ask for is how do we become better than we were the day before?
And your kids see everything you do.
Everything.
So if they watch you try to be a better person every single day, they're watching how you try to be a better person every day, and that's the habits that they learn. That's the habits that they get.
Yeah, and I think we all have really amazing spouses, right? And I think part of being successful men, right? We have the women in our lives that help us look way past all of that. They teach us how to be meeker and gentler and kinder, right? And not be so rigid and rigid and rugged.
Well, she reminds me. Andrea reminds me frequently. I can't be that hard on Julia. Yeah, I mean you've seen it. You know the Sarge in my house.
Yeah.
you can't be that hard on her. She constantly reminds me and pulls me back a little bit and grounds me. I mean, in our house we say home team.
Home team, absolutely.
Home team in our house.
Yep, we say GFW, God Family Work.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's always a thing. You got to always, your top 3 is your family is in your top 3, man.
I love that.
Yeah, and you never sacrifice, your family. You always got to be there to provide for them. You always got to be there. I mean, you're gonna miss the needle sometimes. You're gonna yell at somebody. I mean, there's been moments where, I told my son, hey man, shut up right now. Don't, and then I have to go back to him and tell him, hey man, it wasn't that deep, man. I shouldn't have said that. My bad. Will you forgive me? And, kids are very forgiving and very resilient, and they can take a lot. And, all the times that are away, and as you mentioned, Bill, right, you said there was opportunities where you had to leave, right? And you couldn't be present. How was your children going to deal with that when you came back? That's always a struggle, trying to figure out what to do or what to say to them to get them to feel comfortable that, your experiences with them is not something that's terminal,
Yeah, and my daughter has turned into a version of me. Despite all my wife trying to
hopefully she doesn't have that beard, man.
No. She is a savage. Once you get to know her, she'll open up and then
she'll open up.
Okay,
and it's funny. Like some of the stuff I got to put my hand in my head or my head in my hand. But all right. So when she started coming here, she obviously got good coaching for lifting, right?
Absolutely.
So she went into wrestling. They did coaching for lifting. It was an adequate program, but they weren't really pushing the girls. And every time Susan starts complaining, I let her vent. Right now, I'm a little bit savage. So she'll complain a little too much, and I'm like, you know what I recommend? And the first time I said it, she's like, what? And I'm like, stop being such a pussy. Just get up and do it, right? And then so now I say, you know what I recommend? She just, all right, Dad, I got it. So we were in the weight room because I would help assist with the coaching there once in a while. And the one girl was complaining. And I'm sitting there in my hoodie, and I'm listening to her complain. I'm like, the more you complain, the longer it's going to last. Just lift the weight and get out. You're doing fine. You're just complaining a lot. And when my daughter goes, you know what I recommend? And I look at her, and I'm like, no.
No. You can do that with me. No.
Because she misses that mark. I said to her, at some point in time growing up, my dad said to me, look, you can talk however you want to talk around me. Do not talk that way around your mother or your audience. Said the same thing to her, and she has missed that mark so many times. We were sitting with her great-grandma, my grandma, her second year of school, and my grandmother says, hey, are there any boys you're interested in? She's like, nah, they're all dickheads. And I'm just like, Susan. I'm like, stop it.
Good for her, man. Hey, you know what? If she's realizing now that that's how they are, that's a good place to be.
Well, part of it is she's an only child.
Sure.
So you guys have been more friends than 15, 14, 13-year-old kids. So she goes into school and they're acting like 16-year-olds. And she's like, why are they like this? And I'm like, I want you to be a little bit of that. I want you to make mistakes. I want you to do, you know what I mean? Like, learn from it, have a little bit of fun. Don't look back and go, all those people that were acting like knuckleheads every once in a while, they had a great time. But also don't fall into acting like a knucklehead all the time that you stunt your growth.
Thanks.
So it's trying to get that balance. And I'm like, I expect you to mess up. You know what I mean? I expect at one point in time, maybe I get a phone call like, Dad, I need you to pick me up for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully it's not horrible, but you know what I mean? It's still, you're going to come to me. Like, instead, like, I'm her homie. She'll pound me up as soon as she, what's up, Dad? How you doing? I'm like, that's great. I'm glad, but like, go out and explore the world. You know what I mean? Go out and do something. You know what I mean? She's dreading having to drive. I couldn't wait to get my license.
That's how I was. I got my license when I was 16 years old, and it was like I felt like that was my rite of passage into adulthood. Right?
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get mine either.
Yeah, and I know, like, my son right now, he's like, I can just Uber. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, like, I couldn't wait to get, and get behind the wheel and just go where I wanted to go.
My daughter recently turned 16, and we were driving home from the game this afternoon, and Sam asked, is she studying for a permit yet? And Andrea said, no, not yet. And he's like,
what?
Well, yeah,
but
he was a July birthday, so it's not like he didn't have schoolwork he didn't have the schoolwork and all that, but he was all over it. Even though he got it, and then he didn't want to drive. He figured, being in the city again, he had a free trans pass. He figured, I can go everywhere for free anyway. I'm not paying insurance and I'm not paying gas. I got the trans pass. I'll get on the bus.
That's very.
I'll get on the bus and go. And she's the same. She takes a bus everywhere. So
that's the craziest thing, because
I
was just gonna say that. So for a person in my condition, being in an enclosed space is a little challenging for me. And I don't know how you feel about it, Bill, but it feels like there's too many deltas when I'm underground, for one, and I'm on a train or a sub. And I think I start to sweat. And my wife, like, I took some of my wife's students with my wife down into the city, and we went from like Bryn Mawr over here, and we went to the city, and I was like sweating. My wife was like, are you okay? Like, you're gonna be okay? Like, it's just a train ride. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, like, I'm unprotected, and like, what if something happens and somebody's gonna come in here and I'm gonna laugh.
Constant risk assessment.
Yeah, it's constant risk assessment, and
Rain Man counting cards. My head tilts. I'm looking at that person. I'm looking at everything that's possible about them. I'm like, who am I hitting first if it hits the fan?
Exactly. Or who's on my team? Like, if something goes down, like, who's going to be on my team, right? And I think, like, and I feel bad because I'm like, how could you navigate through the world with blinders on? Like, I feel like it is blinders, but for some people that's a healthy way to navigate, right? And I think for me, I have to do that risk assessment and try to figure out what's the potentials to get you. And that's not necessarily a healthy way to live, but it's a way that is sufficient for me to live where I'm comfortable. Is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know. I talk to some people and they're like, that's not good.
It's not comfortable. It's second nature now. Is what it is. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And you've done, because when you first did it, it was driving you nuts.
Probably.
And then now it's just a factor of life.
It is.
It's practiced. It's burst. You know what I mean? Rehearsed rather, and done
Yeah.
over and over again.
It's absolutely rehearsed. And it's so rehearsed to the point where you don't even think about it.
Yeah,
it's
it's
just what you do.
instinctual now.
It's an instinct. Absolutely. It's absolutely an instinct, and that's just how you operate. Like when I leave, some people make sure that they have their shoes on. I make sure I have my shoes on, but that's not the first thing that I make sure I have on. You know, it's like, shoes are the last thing I have on before I go out the door. That's interesting. Like my wife she's the tree hugger of America, right? Like you see the tree huggers of America and you Google that, you see my wife Lee right next to it, right? She's like a non-combatant. She doesn't believe in like the need for like firearms or anything like that. She believes that everybody should live like how they live in Denmark. She loves it there. Everything is peaceful.
I have firearms though.
Yeah.
They're all issued firearms. So, it's funny because my wife is in the service.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's two different types, like there's people that further embed themselves in the training when they get out,
Yes.
like whatever they remember. And there's people that it goes like the moment she got out, she forgot everything.
Poof.
Yeah, poof.
Yes.
And you could tell that, again, that my kid's more like me and her dad's a nut because she's a nut. Remember when she had the bully?
Mm-hmm.
And she had that movie coming up?
Yep.
And then she said, the girl's going to be there and she keeps bullying me. And I'm like, well, people go to the bathroom at movies.
Yes.
And now's the opportunity.
Yes.
And then Lee said, well, yeah, and if nobody sees it, it
Didn't happen.
Right? And then she looks at both of us and says, what am I going to do with the body? And then I look at her, and she's dead serious. And I'm like, there is no body in this situation. Like, there's levels, kiddo. Like, I'm like, we might need to throttle back right now. Like, there's levels of aggression. That you have
If
to
no one
accomplish.
saw it, it never happened.
I'm like, there's rules of engagement.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
no body in this scenario. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, it's again, just living with that. I can also see how both good and bad it has affected my family.
Yes. I can see the same thing.
For a long time, it stunted us going out anywhere.
Yeah.
And it was really like kung fu. There was like an old Chinese teacher that I had down in Chinatown that was just like, you'll show up on Saturday. And I'm like, I don't do crowds. He's like, lion dance, you show up. And for some reason, just telling me to do it, I did it. And that started to get me out.
Yeah.
And then like fighting everything else, lifting the heavy weights. The endorphins, it's actually controlled violence.
Yes.
If you're thinking about it, because you're being massively aggressive,
Yes.
you're being violent, putting up those weights, but it's controlled.
And you're grunting.
Yeah.
A lot of grunting.
Yeah.
And that's therapeutic,
And you need, like, and I tell people, in order to have a civilized society, you need men who are able to be uncivilized.
Yes.
And that is part of nearly every man. And when you start to lose that, that's when you start to have problems. And you start to lose, like you were saying earlier, with physical fitness. Like Joe Rogan says that all the time. It's one thing I agree with. Like, we have so many psychological problems because we sit at a desk all day. You see a badger sit at a desk all day? No, it's moving. It's doing what it's supposed to do to survive. And we were that at one point in time, and we separated ourselves from that.
Very true.
And being physical, coming in here and lifting the weights and that controlled violence, whatever it is, controlled aggression maybe is a better way to say it.
Yeah.
It kind of hits like a reset switch. It puts us back at our equilibrium.
I think that can be traced from when we went from an industrial society to a service-oriented society. We worked in factories. We were workplace athletes.
Sure.
We were more fit. You didn't see fat people on beaches.
That's true.
Because they worked in factories. We produced cars. We produced steel. We produced, you name it. But once we began sitting behind desks.
Well, real food also became specialty food too, and I'm sure that has something to do with it. Like,
Yeah.
It's all preserved. Like
Yeah.
now you have to spend extra money for actual food.
Yeah, to get organic and non-preservatives, you have to actually pay. And that's the crazy part because everything is mass-produced nowadays. So it's like, it's all targeting the wrong areas of your body. One of them, your brain, to make you feel like you need to eat more of that stuff.
Yep.
It's crazy.
But and also the connection is not being made like with the industrial. Like, you realize the grass-fed cage-free eggs now are half the price. of the mass. You know what I mean? Like, so like that tells you something. Like that is sustainable. That is kind of protected. You know what I mean? Those costs were higher initially when you can get mass-produced chicken eggs where they're putting them all in one coop that's dark and there's 900 of them in space for 100. You can get the healthier eggs now cheaper. Like, so like we can do that. You can maintain it and it can be cheaper. You just have to change practices. And I think that, along with the being physically fit and moving every day, like you said, not sitting down, that helps out mentally, physically, everything.
There is actually a formula. There's an author named Kelly Starrett who wrote 2 big books, Becoming a Supple Leopard, Starrett's point about, the title of that book, I'll backtrack a little bit, is that when the leopard needs to go get its meal, it doesn't stretch out first.
That's true.
It could just jump and go.
Absolutely, that's so true.
So that's a book I actually have on my phone because I used it to treat a lot of my patients at the hospital. For therapy, the therapy stuff, part of it. The strength stuff, I kind of. But he also wrote a book called Desk Bound, and in that book, he has a formula for how many hours you sit behind the desk, or how many hours you sit during the day, as compared to work out. Because if you sit too long, you wipe out the good of that workout.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So if you're working out for an hour at a moderate pace, and you're doing it 3 times a week, but you're sitting for 50 to 60 hours a week, you might as well not even work out.
But I also don't want to be that guy at work with the treadmill on there.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well, I watched a documentary that my sister-in-law and my brother recommended, something like the man that wanted to live forever or something like that. And the guy actually, I think he started Venmo maybe, and all he does all day is work out and eat healthy all day. Like, so he has different types of therapies and workouts all day to try and stave off the aging process.
I wonder what he looks like. Does he look good?
Yeah.
I feel like old age gets. See, this is what's in my favor.
It's going to get you.
See, black crack. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So literally, like my uncle Harry, and he awesome guy, awesome guy, and this guy is like in his 70s. He looks like he's 30. He looks younger than me. Every time I see him, I'm like, what well are you drinking from, my friend? Like, where you look this good at that age, and it's just nuts, And he's getting ready to retire again from being a correctional officer. He used to work at a milk company, and he did that for 20 years, retired from there, and then decided he wanted to be a correctional officer. And I was like, man, what are you going from homogenizing milk to being an actual, an officer. And I think that was crazy. But, he did it for 20 years. He's getting ready to retire. And, he looks just as young because he's constantly moving. And I think that's a thing, right?
So when I worked at the hospital that I worked at had one of the, if not the first cardiac rehab units in the United States. And the premise of it was that exercise would keep you healthier to live a more productive life longer. So back in the day, in the late 70s, early 80s, if one of us went there, they designed your exercise program off a stress test on a treadmill.
Wow.
So insurance companies caught on to that and went, what's a healthy 30-year-old getting stress tested for, like twice a year? Because they would update your program based on the results of the stress test. Okay. Here's the numbers. We had 24 members over the age of 90. We had 300 over the age of 80. And the median age was about 75 out of about 1,800 members. I mean, we had at least, during the time I was there for 17 years, I saw 4 people turn 100.
Wow.
And these people came and worked out 3 days a week. Some of them worked out more, but minimum 3 days a week they came and worked out. And when they got done, they'd sit at a table in the lobby, eat coffee cake, and drink coffee together. And that was their day.
That's awesome, though.
That was their day. It was amazing. And you'd sit there and listen to these stories, at the time. I mean, we had a good number of the greatest generation there. We had a guy there who was an 18-year-old tank commander when they invaded Japan. To listen to that guy's stories and listen to what that generation went through, and they valued that exercise because they knew it improved their quality of life as they got older. I mean, 80 years old, 85 years old, working out 3-4 days a week, having that social hour after. Wow.
Yeah, I had a commander once that she said something super important to me. She said, listen, you can eat whatever you want. And I'm looking at her like, she said, yeah, as long as you're willing to run it off. You can eat whatever you want. You don't have to pick and choose what you want to eat for a meal, right? As long as you're willing to do the work that is necessary to go ahead and burn those calories.
So my son was looking at, I brought home him and another midshipman today for the weekend, and they were in the back seat talking about the PRT. And there's been changes in the PRT. Okay?
Big ones, yeah.
All right, but they know they take a PRT twice a year. So Sam will tell you that at the academy they have soft serve ice cream in the cafeteria.
Oh, yeah.
He says, but you got to pass that PRT.
Absolutely.
So you got to make a choice between soft serve ice cream and passing your PRT.
Bill and I know, because the Air Force has some of the best soft serve ice cream you'll ever find. They have some of the best soft serve ice cream and the best, they have the best omelets too. For whatever reason, I don't know, Air Force omelets are just ridiculously good.
I didn't get a chance to live that life.
You
Like
didn't?
most of the time I was with like the Army, and then I would constantly get made fun of for being an Air Force guy. And I'm like, I'm with you assholes.
Yeah,
Like, I'm out here with you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, or I was at a nuke base, which is just a weird world. Like big nukes is like, it's a weird world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, even when I was in shape, I couldn't eat what I wanted. Like, I would have one meal a week. Like, and a lot of people say, "Oh, you just got to run it off." I'm like, if you saw how much I run, like, you know what I mean? Like, I really, like, genetically, like, there's certain things that I just can't eat, and I'm just going to put weight on, which is a problem because that's what 90% of the world eats right now. And and then I look at my wife and kid, and they eat, like, my kid's actually gotten better since wrestling, but my wife, like, until she started getting sick, would just eat like garbage and just be jacked. Like, she would go and do like 4 pull-ups in the service and then go sit in the sauna the rest of the time in the gym. It's like 2.5 hours. I'm pouring sweat. I'm getting ready for a strongman competition, and I'm like, I'm fighting being chubby the entire time that I was in.
Look, I'm still playing hockey 2-3 days a week because I hate treadmills, I hate bikes, and I like to eat.
I hate running. I hate
running, and I love food.
Yeah.
I'll play any sport any day of the week, but I do not like running. I would run when I was in. My friends will tell you they would see me on the treadmill with my ruck on, like when I was home on leave, like just running full force on the treadmill. But like I hated running.
Yeah, that was one of the things that got me. I was like, until I started figuring out, like, because with the Air Force, if you get 100, if you get 100% or 90 or above, right, on your PT, you don't have to actually do it twice a year. You only have to do it once. And I think for me is once I started getting that like 95, right, because the run was holding me back, then I started to think to myself, well, I still hate running, but it feels much better because I know there's a goal where I only have to come out here and do that test, right, one time a year. But some people are like, well, yeah, then you take the rest of the year off. And I'm like, no, you have to maintain it because you know that the next test that you get, you're going to do even worse if you take the rest of the time off because you don't have to condition to get yourself prepared. So, I mean, it depends on how you look at that particular situation.
So an athlete that impacted how I prepared for powerlifting was Bernard Hopkins. I'm a huge huge boxing fan because Hopkins said that he could take a fight on 2 or 3 weeks' notice because he was always in shape.
Always ready.
Always ready.
If you stay ready, you don't got to get ready.
Exactly. He looked at guys that would balloon up 30, 40 pounds in between fights and then have to lose all that weight to make weight. Like, I never had to make weight.
Yeah.
I was healthy enough to compete in weight classes, and I just knew when it was time to move up.
Sure.
Yeah, so I can't relate to not being able to make weight because you let yourself go and get out of shape.
I hate it. I was always 230, 240 in the service, but I was always like 8 to 10% body fat.
Sure.
And so they would just look at me and they would just go by the numbers of your weight. And the only thing that would stop me from I had to max out the run, push-ups and sit-ups because even at 8% body fat, when they tape me, I wouldn't have the waist measurement. They're like, they're hitting my hip bones, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
Well, that's because of that whole BMI chart.
Yeah.
And that BMI chart is for insurance companies.
Yeah.
Because they can stratify your risk for health issues, heart disease, whatnot, from that BMI. But, you know, we're, in a way, we're kind of freaks for that reason because technically I'm obese.
Yeah.
They want me to be at 5'8". They want me to be like 155.
That's true.
I'm 180.
Yeah.
I'll be anorexic at 155 pounds. There's no way I'm making 155 pounds.
For me, I ended up having to get a waiver to come into the military for two reasons. One, because of the children. The other one was because I was 196 pounds at 6 foot tall at 25 years old. Right? And they were like, yeah, well, you're considered obese by the standard. And I was like, wow. Nobody has ever said that to me.
I'm not fat. I'm not fat.
Yeah.
Well, they tried to hit me with that on the way out when they had me on med board. Well, you've always had a weight problem. I'm like, no. I'm 230, 240, but I've always been solid.
Yeah.
Like I remember getting to Wyoming, and there was a girl there that was like the PT leader, which was always ridiculous because I was way in better shape than them.
Yeah.
And she said to me once, "Why aren't you on my Fat Boy program?" I'm like, "Okay, why don't we go running?"
Yeah.
And then we did 2 miles, and I smoked her. Like she was still on her, you know what I mean? Like on her, like finishing up her first when I was done my second. I could run 6-minute miles.
Yeah.
And I just remember you. Oh, you good? You good? I was kind of worried about you there.
Yeah.
You all right? You good? I'm like, you think your Fat Boy program will help me? You think it'll help me? Like, and I would hate and then they found that out, and I would be behind everybody in the group runs. So my legs would be in pain the entire time we're running because now I'm short stepping myself.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to force the other people with me because you
To
know
push them forward.
There's a reason they make fun of some Air Force people.
That's so true.
Their stereotype is true, and you got I had a guy who got out. Like I had a troop that got out because he's like, my family just don't. We just don't do PT. So they let early out. So he got an early out just so he wouldn't have to do PT anymore.
Wow, that's crazy.
He was the laziest person I've ever met, and that guy would always be in front of me during the group runs, and I'm like pushing him. I'm like, dude, my legs hurt.
Yeah.
I'm about to pick you up and carry you.
Yeah, I had to tell my wife that a couple times because we tried running together, and she's like, "Wait, you need to slow down." I'm like, "Wait, who said this was a couple's activity?"
If you don't like running, you have to get your rhythm.
Yes.
And it always takes a half a mile for me to get my rhythm. I look horrible my first my first half mile run.
Yeah.
And then I would hit my stride, and then I could do it all day.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me. Like I have very long strides, and my wife is probably, I don't know, she's around 5'7", 5'8", right? And so for me to reduce my stride to her stride is just crazy. It was difficult, and like you said, my knees and my legs would be burning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is only a mile in.
Yeah.
You know, like, why am I tired? What's going on? And it's because I just wasn't running optimally because I was,
Changing
running,
your rhythm,
changing my rhythm so she didn't get left in the dust.
My son couldn't run to save his life when he started. So when he had to do the physical test for the application, he was running a 12.5-minute mile.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, bro, I can walk it in 12.5 minutes. What are you doing? His feet were slapping the ground when he would run.
Yeah.
He's got to about, he's broke a 7-minute mile. He might be at 6:30, something like that. I mean, something really good. But to max out his PRT, it's, I think he said 5 minutes and 15 seconds. And there's no way. There's no way he's going to hit a 5:15.
Yeah.
No matter how hard he goes, he's not going to hit that 5:15.
Yeah, good thing for me, I was 25, so that I was looked at as a seasoned adult-ish kind of in the military, instead of the young bulls that were coming in at 17, 18 years old. I think for me, I had to do it within 10:47 was like my number. Yeah. Once I got it within 10:47, I'd max out my push-ups, sit-ups, and I was good to go. And I just made sure I was taped. Under like 32 was like, if I was anything over 32, then I would lose points or something like that. But yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. Running for me was the most difficult part of my experience at basic. Like I hated it. Push-ups and sit-ups, I could do those all day long.
He could do all that
all day long.
All day long. Swim all day long.
All day long, yep.
Basic made me out of shape.
You think so?
Yeah, because I went in and I could run forever.
Yeah.
I would wake up every morning, I'd go for a run. Then I would lift in the afternoon, then I would go for swims at night. And then I would do that like nearly every day.
Sure.
So when I got there, them running a mile, like I could do that backwards in my sleep.
Yeah.
I came third. I think there was 2 track stars that came in before me and the run. My TI hated me because at the time I had a college degree. I enlisted September 11th.
Oh, okay.
And then delayed until after I graduated college. And my TI was like, I mean, he say stuff that they don't say anymore, but he like college stuff like that. The F word. I'm like, well, like, and like he hated me. And I remember coming in third to these 2 guys that were track, because they were just running that first mile. And he was like, and I think I ran like a 6:01. He's like, you lazy motherfucker. And I tell you, he hated everything I did up until the very end. But it was, it definitely made me out of shape because then I went to pararescue and doc after that. And then I would have been ready for the first few weeks of pararescue and doc physically if I didn't go to boot camp.
Wow.
But then my high school sweetheart, and was like, I want to get married, and I dropped out like pretty, in the program. And
yeah, that's one thing I told my son. If anybody is going to enlist, listen up real quick. A couple of things that you don't do when you get out of basic training: don't get married. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Just wait. And then don't buy a car. Don't buy a car. Don't take out any major loans. Those are the things that you don't do. So for those that are listening, don't do those things. Especially get married. Just wait it out. Because that's
it changed. I didn't want a job that deployed all the time, and then I got a job that deployed all the time. You know what I mean? And I could have had my beret. You know what I mean? In theory, if I made it through, because I mean, there's tough points psychologically, but physically, it's something that I could have conquered.
Sure.
But yeah, I got out of that. And then they would leave, and you would get other people that would leave, and you're going to your next school, and then you would see these people, and they're like, I got hurt. And I'm like, stop telling these horror stories, dude. You just dropped out. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is.
Yeah, because I think to some people, they have to justify the ends, right, for themselves to mentally accept it, right? And I think that's a crazy thing. Like, no, dude, just you the end of the day, man, you didn't make it, right? And I think that's okay. Like, I mean, if you were going through and you were a strong candidate and you broke your leg or something that you can't help, right? But if you like I always take it back to the Navy, like the SEALs, right? Like if you ding the bell, man, you ding the bell, man.
Did you read Can't Hurt Me? Did you read David Goggins?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right. I mean,
because you can get hurt.
Yeah.
Like there's pararescuemen that got hurt and broke their leg or whatever.
Yeah.
And they went back. They
go
just
back.
recovered and they go back. I mean, and you know what? Good on them, man, because you start all over again.
Yeah,
you're
that's
back at
true.
week 1 in doc. You know what I mean? Unless you're down the pipeline, unless you passed in doc already.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just didn't get it because people would go, "Why'd you?" I'm like, I wanted to get married, and it wasn't a job that was, to be honest, as a young, person. Most of the guys who want to have a family go into training.
Sure.
At some point, and it was a dumb mistake because now I'm with my second wife. That's 20 years, and
you know what? I think the best thing about life is that there's so many avenues that you can take. You're not constricted to. There's not somebody that says, like, you have to go down this path, this groove. You have to follow this groove, and you can never bridge off of that, right? And I think that's the beauty of life, is that you have the autonomy to make decisions and to do your own thing and to kind of just, there's so many things to take in on that journey. And you just figure it out every day that you wake up. What do you tell me?
Good day to be alive.
It's a good day to be alive, absolutely. And I say every day is a good day to be alive, right? Because every day that you wake up, you have the opportunity to move your own needle. You have the opportunity to create your own waves and to move your own path, or whatever you want to call it, right? And I think that's a beautiful thing, right? Because there's not a lot of people that look at it that way. They look at the same job that they have, right, doing the same exact thing day in and day out, and then they wonder why they're miserable and that they're depressed and that they can't find joy, or they're on their 17th and 18th wife, and nobody ever measures up, and those kind of things. Is because they lose the ability to remember that they chart their own path, right? Like if you're gonna sit at home all day long, you're going to bear the effects. You're going to bear that fruit, right?
Yep.
And if you're up moving and bettering and conditioning yourself every day, you're going to bear and reap that fruit. And I think that's a lot of the things that are missing with the young people today, is having them understand that what you reap is what you're going to sow, right? Or what you sow is what you're going to reap. Right? I said it a little backwards, but that's what is missing, and the accountability part, right? We always talk about the accountability part of that.
Accountability
and that's
is huge.
missing.
But that's experience with the world.
Yeah.
And they don't have that when they're on social media all day. There's people like that are just becoming famous for being it. Like there was one guy that played games and screamed. My kid was growing, and I'm like, it drove me nuts. And like my kid loved it. And then like I'm watching, like, and there's a very particular cadence with it. It's very like,
Yeah.
and then they do like some kind of hard thing. You know what I mean? It's very quick. And I'm watching a girl say, "Oh, my favorite drink. It has, it causes dementia. Coke Zero." Miss you, Grandma. Meaning her grandmother had dementia, and I'm like, you're a sociopath.
Yeah.
You're pimping out your life.
Yes.
And like you're making it like this weird, almost like light of the fact that your grandmother suffered, and you know what I mean? Like this is like, you're talking about heavy shit, man.
Yeah.
And it's brushing off, but all that goes without experiencing the world, without experiencing other people, without going out there and doing it. And you don't know that you can make those adjustments
That's
if
true.
you're not out there and you're just looking at a screen all day, which is why.
Well,
like,
I think part of the reason they're addicted to it is that, you know, they see these people that have become insta famous,
Yeah.
you know, for all these videos and all that shit, and they just get glued to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they can't stop. It's a train wreck. They can't stop looking at it.
and they've watered down famous too.
Yeah, they've watered down
Yeah,
famous.
so-
Yeah, famous is watered down.
It is. And the other thing that I look at also, and this is more so, I think, a bigger deal for like our young ladies than more so for the males, is just that body image and what a standard, or what a beautiful person looks like. And I think that is crazy, because it takes away, and it kind of robs our young ladies of the ability to kind of be who they are, right, in their own skin, right? Like my daughter, she's never going to have, well, I guess she could one day if she wanted to, have blonde, straight hair, right?
Yep.
But that's like the thing, you know, or have super light skin, or, you know, or have a super straight nose. And,
So, like,
you know, it's crazy.
Like what I see out of my daughter is like, she can go hours without eating. She takes no joy in food.
Yeah.
So because she has to be skinny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what she sees everywhere.
That whole
And then
body dysmorphia.
That whole and when they see it, like when we got body images, I mean we got that kind of thing from looking at magazines.
Sure.
Looking at muscle magazines,
Yeah.
looking at superheroes, looking at comic books and all that kind of thing. They get it from every unqualified individual that's making TikTok videos, that's on Instagram, you know, and they're unqualified. They're not degreed, they're not certified, whatever, but they might be hot.
Yes.
So, you know, they're going to listen to them because they're hot.
Yes.
You know, the newest fad in our industry now is the peptides for losing weight, for getting skinny.
Yeah.
You know, the Ozempics, the you know, Wachovia or
Yeah.
you know, whatever it is, and the over-the-counter stuff. So now you've got people who are completely unqualified. Like I'll give an example. I know somebody who's an English teacher in high school who is selling this stuff, has her business on the side, and has this whole Instagram pushing this stuff, and you inject it. Like I don't know about you guys, but I draw the line at needles. Like if it's not an MD, if it's not an MD recommending it, I draw the line at needles.
Sure.
Right? And these people inject it all in the name of being skinny. Like forget the side effects that it weakens your heart. It causes muscle atrophy. Look, the side effects are horrific.
Sure.
And they can't be reversed. So once you go down that road, you're done. So you just get a skinnier box. That's the way I see it.
Well, the other thing is their diabetes meds. Because
Well-
I'm on one of them as a diabetes med primarily, and
Yeah.
it became a weight loss med.
Yeah.
And then there's times where I just don't have it, or I got to do 2 shots of a lower dose.
So I had a client here who needed it because he needed knee replacements.
Sure.
He was relatively young. He was around
Yeah.
your age. He needed knee replacements. And, you know, the doc said, well, you got to lose weight before we'll do the knee replacements. And it was a vicious cycle because he couldn't exercise intensely enough because of his knees to lose the weight. So he needed the med, but they couldn't find the med for him. You know, because, you know, Miss Average who wants to be hot.
Yeah.
Who's,
soaking up
soaking it up.
4 months supplies.
Because she wants to be skinny at the beach.
Yeah.
And, here's this poor bastard needs knee replacements and he can't get it.
Yeah, well, he also didn't know it was a weekly shot because him and I were talking once about it. And I'm like, he's like, man, he's like, how do they expect me to get by with 4 shots in a box? I'm like, dude, it's a month worth of it. I'm like, you're taking that daily?
No.
And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, you know how incredibly dangerous that is?
Oh, my
But
God.
then he also came up to us like,
Wait, hold on. So that it was definitely whatever he got was probably not prescribed, because that's something that you would feel like a physician would tell you, like, hey, this is a one a week.
You would think, but not.
Wow.
There's some doctors that, that can still get by with a C-. You know what I mean? Like,
What do you call a guy who got C's in medical school?
That's true. Not all doctors are created equal. That's very
and
true.
he's also the one that came up to us during one of we were at a boxing event that Ken was trained, or not we.
Captain Morgan.
Captain
Ken
Morgan,
Ford.
yeah.
And he came up with like 2 hot dogs and a pretzel. Meanwhile, I'm chewing on a protein bar.
Oh my goodness.
He's like, how you doing? You know what I mean? I'm like, he's like, how you lose all that weight? And I'm like, I'm eating a protein bar, bro.
How are you doing, buddy? Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's, to me, it's nuts to hear or see people sometimes, and especially the people that you love, and they're like, yeah, I'm trying to lose weight, and then I'm like, but you had like 4 cheeseburgers, like what's the deal with that? Like, what's going on there? Oh, well, I'll just work extra tomorrow at the gym, or I'll just do this, and you think to yourself, well, maybe you just cut your portions in half, and then just try that, because that's one of the things that I started doing, and one of the things that, and I feel like this was a huge thing for me to start losing weight, is that all of my nighttime snacks, and my wife will tell you, she will not lie for me. She won't. I used to she's like, where you going? And it'd be like 11 o'clock at night. And I'm like, oh, well, I got some chicken delivered. And she's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, yeah, Crown fried chicken is that's like crack. You know what I'm saying? It's literally it's like kryptonite. So I'm like, yeah, I just got a box of chicken. And she's like, oh, she shakes her head, and it got to the point where, my Miss Sassy, the 5-year-old, was like, you're fat. And it literally, to me, I was like, wait, I said, excuse me? She said, Daddy, you're fat. And I didn't know what to say. The only thing I could say was, do you think mommy's fat? And she said, no. No. And I was like, and she was disgusted by the fact that I asked, is mommy fat? And she was like, no. And I remember thinking to myself, and this was a little bit more than a year ago. And I said, oh man, I gotta figure something out. I gotta do something, because I can't get punked by my 5-year-old.
What's up, fatty?
Yeah. What's up, chubs? It's
fridge again?
Yeah. Dad, if you cut one of those out, and it's a 5-year-old. When I asked her, because I wanted to just get an understanding of how relative being fat was to her, and when I asked her, do you think mom is fat? And she said no, and she was like, she made a face and looked at me what are you thinking? No, mom's not fat. And I was like, wow. So man, I must do something. And I think that was a turning point for me, where my wife was like, well, what are you going to do about it? Because I had a conversation with her. I was like, and she's like, what are you going to do about it? And I said, I gotta hit a gym. And at that moment, we call him Sleeper Cell in my fraternity. His name is Curtis. And he sent me the flyer. It was like, hey, I ran into this guy named Bill, and he sent me the flyer, sent it out to me. Then I reached out to you, and then I was like, hey, yeah, man, this is something I really want to do, and check it out. I didn't tell you the fat story because that's kind of embarrassing, but
I still called out by a 5-year-old.
I still get it. I mean, he's like a 5-year-old, but I'm the standard for fat guys. And I'm like, I got to sled more, because they'll go, this guy was Bill's size, and people look at me and like, he's a fat fuck. That's what Lee's saying. He's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Bill, fat guy, fell on me at hockey.
But it's crazy that it's been a year. It's over a year now, and it's been, 50 pounds later,
Wow, is
Big
that
deal.
much?
Yeah, that's how much it is, man. I started. I was like 245. I'm at like somewhere around like 193, 192. Depends on
Yep.
on the water.
Yeah,
The water.
started at like 496.
Yeah.
I'm like around 340.
See, that's awesome though. Yeah, that's outstanding.
Yeah,
that's
so-
I mean, that's a new wardrobe right there.
Several.
Yeah,
I'm still getting rid of clothes. My wife's like, where the hell am I going to put all this? And I'm like, I got to go through them.
yeah, and that's the thing for me. Every day I put on clothes to go to church, and I'm like, this clothes don't fit like they used to anymore. Like, where'd my ass go? Like, I have to do more squats tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing too is that your own personal image that you have of yourself, and how does that make you feel? And I know a lot of people make some really interesting decisions based off of how their own perception of themselves are. But I think that's one thing that, we have such a skewed perception of what fit looks like, such a skewed perception of what beautiful is, right? And I think, and even wealth, we have such a skewed perception of all those things that I think mentally, it's
made for
crippling
that much
us.
info.
Yeah, it's
You know
like
what I mean?
crippling
It's
to us.
constantly. I mean, my favorite achievement was about 100 pounds down. And I text Lee at 9 o'clock at night telling him I could see my dick.
Yeah, it's there. I thought I know that was there.
And the other thing I get back is,
I'm just sitting here looking at that text. I didn't know how to respond to it. I'm
he's just like,
you're welcome.
he's like, no,
You're
he's just
welcome.
like, okay. He wasn't sure why I was telling him.
Yeah, my standard response. I understand.
We're at about
makes
a-
sense.
It's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Hey man, that's a thing to look forward to, man. If you haven't seen it in a while, like, hey man, like, what's
I was
going
just
on?
like, where'd that come from?
What's going on, buddy? Long time no see.
We're at about an hour 40.
That's excellent.
I'm good.
Good?
Yeah.
I guess we'll wrap it up there.
Stand up.
Yeah, man.
Oh, dude.
That went by super quick.
Yeah, it does. I gotta figure out why that's clipping.
Probably me. I'm so boom.
No, it's me. I don't know why. Like it
yeah.
was the last time. So my buddy works at Sweetwater. I got some Megami cables.
Yeah, I'm all about mic diction. Like I teach, audio a lot. So I'm always on top of a mic because that's the best signal to noise